Alright guys, let's be real for a second. Most of us chase peace like it's the air we breathe. Quiet, steady and visible. We just assume our partners want that same serene calm, right? But what if that very peace you're so proud of providing actually feels like a slow emotional death to her? What if the drama you dread and try to avoid is actually the only thing that screams, "I still matter" to her nervous system? It's a wild thought, I know, but stick with me. Because in the next few minutes I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you the fascinating peer-reviewed biology behind why emotional chaos can sometimes feel more intoxicating, more alive to many women than the perfectly peaceful relationship you're working so hard to build. And don't worry, we're not advocating for turning your life into a soap opera. We're talking about understanding this deeply ingrained wiring, so you can use that knowledge to build a stronger, more vibrant connection. Section 1. The brain on boredom. Picture this. You finally hit that sweet spot in your relationship. Friday night rolls around, and it's Netflix, pizza, no arguments, no frantic text wondering where you are. You let out a deep sigh of relief thinking, bliss. Here's the kicker. She's probably sighing too, but her sigh might be carrying a completely different chemical cocktail. Neurologists have a term for it, peace fatigue. It's not about being ungrateful for calm. It's about what happens when certain neurochemicals like oxytocin and adrenaline stay consistently flat for too long. For many women, this emotional flatness can make their limbic system, that ancient emotion processing part of the brain, register the relationship as low investment. Or unthink about it. If everything's always just fine, where's the excitement? Where's the vibrant pulse? A fascinating 2023 Turkish fMRI study actually looked at this. When long-term couples reported that everything's fine, the women's reward centers in their brains lit up significantly less than the men's. They were, quite literally, bored. This isn't a judgment, it's a biological reality. The takeaway here is huge. What you perceive as calm, steady sailing, her brain might interpret as emotional starvation. It's a brain wired to equate intensity with importance, and if there's no intensity, it can feel like there's no importance. This isn't about conscious desire for conflict, but an unconscious inclination towards emotional intensity to feel engaged and connected. Section 2. The Evolutionary Receipt. So why would Mother Nature, in all her infinite wisdom, hardwire us this way? Why would she reward something that seems so chaotic? The answer, surprisingly, is simple and profoundly primal. Kids. For a staggering 99% of human history, a woman's survival, and more importantly, the survival of her offspring, hinged on keeping a protector emotionally invested and deeply hooked. Back then, life wasn't exactly stable. There were no social safety nets, no steady paychecks. A woman needed a man who would consistently bring back calories, fend off rivals, and stay loyal. How did she know he was truly committed? Through costly signals, passionate reconciliations, the tears, the intense makeup, intimacy, the heartfelt gifts. These weren't just romantic gestures. They were receipts. They were undeniable proof that he was still in, that he was still willing to invest. Women who never rocked the boat, who maintained a perfectly smooth, emotionless surface, sometimes got left behind when the tribe moved on, or when resources became scarce. Their partners simply didn't have enough emotional skin in the game. But those women who could, perhaps unconsciously, trigger a powerful surge of male investment, even if it came through a dramatic conflict and subsequent intense reconciliation, they passed on more genes. They secured their future and their children's future. So when you see what looks like drama, remember that it was once an insurance policy. It was a deeply ingrained evolutionary strategy for securing commitment and resources. Our biology, especially the parts that deal with deep emotional connection, is slow to update its firmware. We might live in modern houses with Wi-Fi, but parts of our brains are still operating on a Savannah-era operating system. This primal programming ensures that emotional engagement, even if it manifests as conflict, becomes a tool for connection and validation. It's a subconscious test to see if you'll stay and fight for the relationship, signaling your commitment. Section 3. The Neurochemical Roller-Coaster. Let's zoom in on the fascinating neurochemical cocktail that makes this all so potent. When a fight erupts, when emotions flare, her body is flooded with cortisol. It's a stress hormone, sure, but it also primes her system for intense engagement. Then, after the argument winds down, after the makeup hug, after the emotional resolution, that cortisol level crashes. And what happens during that crash? A glorious release of dopamine and opioids. These aren't just any chemicals. These are the same neurochemicals that light up the brain's reward centers when you eat chocolate, win big at the casino, or yes, even use certain illicit drugs. Researchers at the University of Missouri have even coined a term for it, the relational high. It's a powerful, almost addictive cycle. One woman confessed, "It's not that I like arguing, I like the reunion. This isn't about enjoying the conflict itself, but the intense feeling of connection and relief that follows, which floods the brain with feel-good chemicals." Now guys, let's be honest, we often get our dopamine hits from achievement. Closing a big deal, leveling up in Call of Duty, fixing something broken around the house. Our reward system is often tied to external accomplishments. For many women, that powerful dopamine rush, that sense of reward and validation, often comes from reconnection, from the emotional intimacy that follows a period of tension and resolution. It's a different supply chain, but it's the same powerful drug. This emotional intensity, though it might seem overwhelming, is often interpreted by the brain as a sign of connection and engagement. It's a way for her to feel your presence in her world, to know that she matters enough to evoke a strong emotional reaction from you. Section 4. Media gasoline on a biological spark. Hollywood, bless its dramatic heart, figured this out long before the neuroscientists did. Think about almost every romantic comedy or drama you've ever seen. What's the arc? It's rarely a calm, steady progression of happiness. No, it's friction, misunderstanding, a big dramatic blow-up, a frantic sprint through an airport, and then the passionate, triumphant kiss. This constant repetition isn't just entertainment, it's literally wiring our brains. It trains us, especially women, to see these emotional ups and downs, these dramatic peaks and valleys, as hallmarks of real love. A comprehensive 2022 meta-analysis of 124 films revealed something striking. Female characters initiated 68% of relational conflict, yet in 89% of those instances, they were framed as heroes, passionately pursuing authenticity. What does this translate to? Pop culture implicitly, and sometimes explicitly, trains women to view drama, emotional intensity, and even conflict as proof of depth, passion, and genuine connection. At the same time, it often trains men to view stability, calm, and a lack of overt conflict as the ultimate prize. No wonder both sides often feel gaslit, confused, and utterly misunderstood. It's like we're playing by two different rulebooks, written by two very different authors. This media portrayal isn't just about entertainment. It shapes expectations and self-perception. Women in media are often reduced to stereotypes defined by their relationships to men, or portrayed as overly emotional. This creates a feedback loop where women are expected to embody these dramatic roles, and men are left scratching their heads. The media's constant focus on conflict and reconciliation as the pinnacle of romance can lead to unrealistic models for real-life relationships, making some believe that frequent emotional turbulence is not only normal, but desirable. Section 5. Testing. Testing. Is this thing on? Ever had her ask, "What are you thinking?" and you, being a typical guy, honestly answer, "Nothing," only for that to suddenly, inexplicably launch you into an argument you absolutely did not sign up for? What the heck just happened? Often, my friend, that's what we call a stress test. It's not always a conscious, malicious act. By subtly jolting the emotional climate, she's often at a subconscious level, watching, she's observing whether you stay congruent under fire, whether your commitment holds firm when things get a little shaky. It's like a pop quiz on your dedication. Biologists refer to this as costly signaling. If you're willing to absorb the hassle, the emotional discomfort, the seemingly irrational conflict, then that signal of your investment is expensive and therefore believable. It proves you're not just there for the easy times, you're willing to weather the storms. On-roll through disse djupainset on-roll-patient kolorum on despettiget powerstrub the tipplingland. Absolutely. Is it effective? From an evolutionary standpoint, historically, yes, it has been. Understanding that this drama is often a deep-seated subconscious test of your emotional strength and commitment doesn't mean you always have to take the quiz, or that you have to condone toxic behavior, but it does mean you get to see the sheet of paper before the pen even hits it. You understand the underlying mechanism which gives you power. She's trying to gauge if you can handle her chaos, if you'll remain solid when she feels shaky, and if your presence is unwavering. She needs reassurance that you care and will stay, even during challenging times. Section 6. Identity through emotion. Psychologists at Northwestern University found that women score significantly higher, about 30% higher, on scales measuring identity as emotional barometer. What does that mean? For many women, their sense of self, their very identity, is deeply intertwined with their emotional experiences. They often report feeling, "I feel, therefore I am." When daily life gets transactional, the endless grind of work, the stack of bills, the mountain of laundry, it can feel devoid of genuine emotional depth. In these moments, relationship drama, or rather intense emotional engagement, can serve as a powerful reminder that she's still the heroine in her own unfolding story. The conflict creates a plot twist. a challenge to overcome. The subsequent reconciliation, the emotional repair, creates meaning and validates her significance. Without this emotional texture, some women describe feeling like furniture that talks, present, functional, but utterly invisible and lacking a vibrant inner life. The moral here isn't that you should actively seek out conflict, it's that occasional turbulence, emotional peaks and valleys aren't necessarily pathology. For many, it's a form of identity maintenance, a way to feel alive, connected and significant. It's how they process and engage with the world, and it's a fundamental difference in how male and female nervous systems process emotional engagement. This need for emotional activation is part of why some women feel a deep-seated need to challenge their social and emotional skills, seeing relationships as challenging and meaningful when they involve intense emotional experiences. Section 7. Secure versus stuck. Where's the line? Now here's the crucial rub. Not every woman craves chaos, and drama isn't always healthy. This isn't a blanket justification for destructive behavior. Attachment research clearly shows that securely attached women regulate their emotions and navigate challenges through open communication, mutual understanding, and collaborative problem solving, not through constant combustion. So, how do you tell the difference between evolutionary spice and clinical fire? Look for the red flags. Constant crisis manufacturing, where she seems to be deliberately creating conflict out of thin air. Threats of self-harm, emotional manipulation, or broadcasting your relationship issues across social media are clear indicators of unhealthy patterns. These are not about seeking connection. They are often rooted in deeper insecurities, a need for attention, or an inability to regulate emotions constructively. Healthy intensity, on the other hand, might look like an occasional passionate conversation about jealousy that, while uncomfortable, ultimately leads to clearer boundaries and deeper intimacy. It's an emotional challenge that strengthens the bond, not fractures it. The goal is to distinguish between that primal, sometimes intense drive for connection and genuine toxic patterns that erode trust and respect. If the drama escalates despite your calm leadership and consistent boundaries, if it feels like a constant state of emotional warfare rather than occasional emotional engagement, then it's time to consider professional support. Therapy, not just another YouTube video, might be necessary to navigate these more complex dynamics. Remember, individual differences, upbringing, and personal history play major roles in behavior, so what's normal can vary. If this is reframing some of the head-scratching arguments you've had, do me a favor, hit that like button so the algorithm knows to show it to other guys who might be stuck in the same confusing loop. And if you want more evolutionary dating tactics without the cringeworthy pickup artist circus, then go ahead and subscribe. Section 8. The Male Countermove. So what's the play here? Do you just start fights for fun to keep her engaged? Absolutely not. That's missing the point entirely. The smart move, the powerful move, is to consciously supply micro-highs within the stability you already provide. Think of it like a roller coaster, not a plane crash. You want thrilling drops and exhilarating climbs, but always within a safe, controlled environment. For example, surprise her with a spontaneous road trip to a cute little town you saw online. Or, jokingly, fight over the last slice of pizza, escalating into playful wrestling or tickle war. Maybe race her up the stairs to your apartment, making a big deal out of who gets there first. The key is that each of these spikes stays under 10 minutes, ends with laughter, a hug, or some form of physical touch, and is infused with genuine affection. Relationship coach John Gottman, a titan in the field, calls these emotional gym sets. You're giving her that cortisol dopamine seesaw, that satisfying neurochemical arc, but you're doing it on your terms in a way that builds connection, not resentment. You're becoming the source of exciting, positive emotional energy, rather than waiting for external forces or her subconscious wiring to create it. This is about being proactive, about injecting vitality into the relationship in a way that feels safe, playful, and deeply connecting. It's about recognizing that emotional intensity, when channeled positively, can be a superpower in your relationship, fostering deeper connection and intimacy. Section 9. Emotional push-ups. Another powerful tactic is what I call calibrated tension. This is when she starts to spiral a bit, perhaps venting about something frustrating or expressing a fear about your relationship. Instead of immediately trying to fix it, or worse, fleeing the emotional intensity, you hold steady and reflect. Try saying something like, it sounds like you're really scared we might be losing our spark. Tell me more about that feeling. Your grounded, calm presence in that moment does something incredible for her brain. It allows her to finish the stress cycle without you absorbing all the blame or getting pulled into her emotional storm. When she feels truly seen and heard, when she experiences you as a solid, non-reactive anchor during her emotional turbulence, She gets the intensity of feeling deeply understood. You, meanwhile, maintain your frame, your calm, and your leadership. This takes practice, but it's an emotional push-up worth doing. Next time she vents, count to 3 seconds before you respond. Just a simple, deliberate pause. You'll be shocked at how that small pause can shorten the storm, giving both of you a moment to breathe and allowing her to process her emotions without feeling rushed or dismissed. This kind of empathetic listening and validation creates a secure relational environment, fostering mutual understanding and deepening connection. It shows emotional strength and fortitude, which is what she is often looking for. Section 10. Boundaries without guilt. Remember, peace is still your oxygen mask. Secure men understand that endless chaos is not a badge of honor, it's a drain. So you need to state your non-negotiables early and clearly. Things like no yelling at 2 a.m. or no public scenes. Frame these boundaries not as demands but as statements of self-respect and a desire for constructive communication. You might say, look, I genuinely want to hear everything you have to say, but if voices start to rise, I'm going to take a 20-minute walk to clear my head, and then I'll come back and we can talk calmly. This isn't a threat, it's a pre-agreed upon strategy. Consistency is absolutely key here. When you consistently enforce these boundaries, her nervous system learns that drama has diminishing returns. It doesn't get her what she wants. Simultaneously, your reliability, your consistent return, your willingness to re-engage calmly stays constant. Over 4 to 6 weeks, most women will naturally dial down the frequency and intensity of dramatic outbursts if the relationship still feels alive and connected in other ways. They learn that calm, respectful communication is the path to connection, not emotional fireworks. This fosters trust and security, creating a healthier dynamic where both partners feel valued and understood. This approach helps maintain your well-being while encouraging healthier communication patterns. Section 11. Long-term calibration. 5 years into a relationship, even the most passionate connections can hit a plateau. That's not a sign of failure, it's just normal human psychology. The novelty wears off, and the brain needs new stimulation. This is where long-term calibration comes in. Don't wait for boredom to set in. Schedule quarterly relationship adventures. This could be anything from dance classes to a last-minute karaoke night to trying a new extreme sport together. The specific activity isn't as important as the shared novelty and the new experiences. Data from the University of Denver shows that couples who actively share new and exciting experiences every 90 days report a staggering 40% higher satisfaction rate in their relationships. Why? Because you're feeding that same neurochemical circuitry that drama once occupied. You're providing the excitement, the newness, the emotional engagement, but now you are the proactive source of that vitality, not the reactive target of conflict. You're replacing the peace fatigue with positive shared thrills, making you the exciting, engaging partner she craves. Rather than a source of predictable calm, this ensures the relationship remains vibrant and stimulating, continually offering those micro highs we discussed earlier. Section 12. Red pill, blue pill, real pill. The internet, in its infinite wisdom, will often tell you that women are either pure, angelic goddesses or conniving, chaos agent villains. But neuroscience, a far more reliable source, tells us something much more nuanced. They're humans, just like us, running on slightly different firmware. Biology nudges, media amplifies, but ultimately, individual choice still sits firmly in the driver's seat. Your job isn't to demonize or oversimplify. It's to treat her like an intelligent adult who can absolutely update her internal code when she's given better data and a clear, compelling reason to do so. Your job is to stay centered, maintain your own emotional stability, and keep your options abundant, not in a manipulative way, but by having a full, thriving life outside the relationship. Most importantly, offer excitement and emotional engagement without ever sacrificing your core values or your spine. That's the real pill, my friend. It might taste a little bitter at first because it challenges your assumptions, but it's ultimately sweet in its results and incredibly effective in building a passionate, respectful, and deeply connected relationship. It's about understanding the underlying psychology and biology, then applying that knowledge to create a dynamic where both partners thrive. Conclusion. Let's be crystal clear. Peace never bored a healthy woman. But boredom, it mimics death to a limbic system that evolved on high stakes. Understanding this fundamental circuitry, learning to proactively supply those healthy microspikes of excitement, and holding your frame with calm, confident leadership, that's how you watch the drama shrink, transforming into a deep fascination with you. You can't outlaw every storm in life, but you can absolutely become the unshakable lighthouse she learns to orient around. Master that understanding, master that presence, and the occasional hurricane becomes mere scenery, not a terrifying threat. Share this with a friend who still thinks happy life means saying yes to absolutely everything, because true happiness in a relationship comes from deep understanding, mutual respect, and a willingness to engage with the beautiful, complex, and sometimes intense emotional landscape that makes us human.